Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Gold and Blue Dude, and if you're a college football or a college basketball fan, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, because what I do here is college football and college basketball videos every single day. I also have live shows on Saturday night and Monday night. I had to postpone last night's live show because of family night, so that live show will happen this evening. Also, don't forget to check out my Patreon page. We have a much wider selection over there, and that's where you'll find Gold and Blue Dude merchandise. And go check out Gold and Blue Dude's TikTok channel. It's time to really start talking about college basketball. Selection Sunday is about a week away, so we're still about a week away from the big dance, but the little dances, aka the conference tournaments, are about to get underway this week. So today I wanted to look at the Big 12 basketball tournament, who are the matchups, and who will win the Big 12 basketball tournament in 2022. First, a brief history of the Big 12 basketball tournament. Started in 1997. Kansas won it in 97, Kansas won it in 98, Kansas won it in 99. Iowa State won it in 2000. Then Oklahoma had a three-peat in 01, 02, 03. Then Oklahoma State won it back-to-back years, 04, 05. And Kansas had another three-peat, 06, 07, 08. Then Missouri won the Big 12 tournament in 2009. Yeah, people forget Missouri was in the Big 12 not too long ago. After that, Kansas with back-to-back titles in 2010 and 2011. Then Missouri won it again in 2012. Back to Kansas in 2013. Iowa State claims one in 2014 and 2015. And Kansas wins it in 2016. Iowa State wins it in 2017. Kansas wins it in 2018. Iowa State wins it in 2019. A lot of swapping back and forth between Kansas and Iowa State. No Big 12 tournament in 2020. But then last year in 2021, Texas won their first Big 12 basketball tournament. So altogether, Kansas has won the Big 12 basketball tournament 11 times. Iowa State has won it 5 times. Oklahoma has won it 3 times. Oklahoma State 2 times. Missouri 2 times. And Texas just that 1 time last year. The teams that are in the Big 12 right now with no titles in the tournament: West Virginia, my team, Texas Tech, Kansas State, TCU, and Baylor. Out of those 5 teams, I think Texas Tech and Baylor have the best chances of finally getting their first Big 12 basketball tournament championship. So let's look at the Big 12 tournament brackets real quick. First of all, you're going to notice that Oklahoma State is missing. They are serving a postseason ban for this year. So no Oklahoma State in the Big 12 basketball tournament this year. So the brackets look a little bit different. There's only one first round game, and that's between the 8 seed Kansas State, who went 14 and 16, and the 9 seed West Virginia, who went 15 and 16. During the regular season, these two teams actually split. West Virginia won the first game 71 to 68. And Kansas State won the second game 78 to 73. The winner out of that matchup will go on to play the number 1 seed Kansas, who went 25 and 6. Kansas swept Kansas State 78-75, then 102 to 83, and they also swept West Virginia 85 to 59, then 71 to 58. So that's a bad matchup for whoever wins between Kansas State and West Virginia. Now on to the top of the bracket in the second round. The 4 seed Texas, who went 21 and 10, taking on the 5 seed TCU, who went 19 and 11. Texas won both of those games 73 to 50 and then 75 to 66. So not a good matchup for TCU. Can they pull off the upset? Then we jump to the bottom half of this bracket, and we have the 2 seed Baylor, who went 26 and 5, against the 7 seed Oklahoma, who went 17 and 14. Baylor won both of those matchups in the regular season, 84 to 74 and then 65 to 51. So once again, not a good matchup for Oklahoma. An uphill battle. Can they pull off the upset? And finally, the last matchup in the second round is going to be the 3 seed Texas Tech, who went 23 and 8, against the 6 seed Iowa State, who went 20 and 11. Iowa State won the first game 51 to 47, and then Texas Tech won the second game 72 to 60. So that game could go either way. So the winner of the Kansas State West Virginia game will play the 1 seed Kansas in the second round. After that, the winner of the 4 seed Texas against the 5 seed TCU will play the winner of the 1 seed Kansas, and whoever wins the 8 seed Kansas State, 9 seed West Virginia matchup. And on the bottom half, the winner of the 2 seed Baylor against the 7 seed Oklahoma will play the winner of the 3 seed Texas Tech and the 6 seed Iowa State. Some pretty good matchups, but really the best matchup early in this tournament is going to be Texas Tech and Iowa State. Very evenly matched. They swapped wins during the regular season, so that's the matchup that I'm focused on for that second round. Now after that, we could have some even better matchups. I like the potential 4 seed Texas against the 1 seed Kansas. I think that's a good matchup. Texas is very capable of beating Kansas. And then on the bottom half, I think my favorite matchup would be the 2 seed Baylor against the 3 seed Texas Tech. Both of those teams very capable of beating each other, and I think the winner of that has an excellent shot to go on to win the Big 12 tournament. And it could be whoever wins that matchup will finally get their first Big 12 tournament championship. So that's another factor that I like about that matchup. Now, technically, anybody can win the Big 12 tournament. But history dictates that if you're a seed any higher than the 4 seed, you're not going to win the Big 12 tournament. That's right, the highest seed that's won the Big 12 basketball tournament was the 4 seed. So really, this is probably going to come down between the 1 seed Kansas, the 2 seed Baylor, the 3 seed Texas Tech, and the 4 seed Texas. Now, if you're a West Virginia fan, don't get your hopes up, okay? We're not going to win the Big 12 tournament. It's not going to happen. I don't even think we'll get into the NIT. So this year is going to be a wash, and we have to look forward to next year. Same thing for Kansas State. If you do get past West Virginia, you're not going to beat Kansas. They whooped you both times. So whoever wins between Kansas State and West Virginia, that's going to be your last win of this season. What about teams outside the top 4? Do they have any shot of winning this tournament? First, the 5 seed TCU. They've been very hot and very cold. If they could get on their very hot streak, I do think TCU is capable of winning the Big 12 basketball tournament, but I don't like their chances, especially that first round matchup against Texas. Not a good matchup for TCU. What about the 7 seed Oklahoma? Well, if they can get past the 2 seed Baylor, I actually think Oklahoma could pull the impossible and win the Big 12 tournament. They have a pretty good basketball team. It's just consistency. They are not consistent. Baylor does have some injuries going on, so this might be a matchup that Oklahoma could overcome. And finally, the 6 seed Iowa State, they got off to a tremendous start this year. They've kind of cooled off, so I really don't like their chances of winning the Big 12 tournament. So whatever issues Iowa State has right now, they need to figure it out in the Big 12 tournament because they are going to go to the big dance, and if they don't get that figured out, they're going to be leaving the big dance very, very early. So here's my quick prediction for this year's Big 12 basketball tournament. That very first game between the 8 seed Kansas State and the 9 seed West Virginia, I do think West Virginia gets the job done. We got so cold towards the end of the season, but the last game of the season, we did beat TCU, and I do think TCU is a better team than Kansas State, and we split the games between Kansas State. So I think West Virginia gets that second win against Kansas State and advances to play the 1 seed Kansas. Now to the top half of the bracket, the 4 seed Texas against 5 seed TCU. I think Texas is just too good of a team. I don't think TCU is ready to make a deep run in the Big 12 tournament, so I have Texas advancing to the second round. Then down to the 1 seed Kansas against the 9 seed West Virginia. I think this will be a blowout. I think the 1 seed Kansas manhandles West Virginia, and West Virginia is out of the tournament. Now to the bottom half, the 2 seed Baylor against the 7 seed Oklahoma. I like the upset here. I think the 7 seed Oklahoma is more than capable of being the 2 seed Baylor, and they have something to play for. They're not quite a lock into the big dance yet. A win over Baylor would go a long way into getting to the big dance, and I think that's exactly what happens. Plus, Baylor is still dealing with some injuries. Finally, the last matchup, the 3 seed Texas Tech against the 6 seed Iowa State. I like that matchup. I think it's going to be a close game. Could be a coin toss, but I'm going with Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. I think they're a much hotter team than Iowa State right now. So I have Texas Tech moving on to the 3rd round to take on the 7 seed Oklahoma. Now we have the 4 seed Texas against 1 seed Kansas, and I think the 4 seed Texas gets it done. Maybe Kansas gets a little unfocused. Maybe Texas gets really, really hot. Whatever the case may be, I have the 4 seed Texas beating the 1 seed Kansas. In that bottom half matchup, the 7 seed Oklahoma against the 3 seed Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech's going to be a little bit more hungrier. Plus, Oklahoma will be coming off an emotional win over Baylor, according to my prediction. So I have 3 seed Texas Tech advancing to play the 4 seed Texas in the Big 12 championship. Out of that matchup, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders beating the Texas Longhorns and winning their first Big 12 basketball tournament championship. They're going to do the same exact thing that Texas did last year and win their first Big 12 tournament basketball championship. So there's my predictions for the Big 12 basketball tournament. So right now, here's the teams that Joe Lunardi has in the Big Dance and what their seed is going to be. Of course, Oklahoma State, they're not going to the Big Dance because they're in a postseason ban anyways. West Virginia's not going to the Big Dance unless they win the Big 12 tournament. Kansas State's not going to the Big Dance unless they win the Big 12 tournament. Then there's Oklahoma. Joe Lunardi doesn't have Oklahoma in the Big Dance right now. But if Oklahoma were to be able to grab some big wins in the Big 12 tournament, they could definitely make the Big Dance. So here are the teams that he has in the Big Dance right now and their seeding. Iowa State as an 8 seed. I think that's a little low for Iowa State. Iowa State has some good wins. I know they've been hot and then cold, but I'd have Iowa State in as a 7 seed at minimum with the chance of climbing higher. He has Texas Tech as a 3 seed. That's about right. And if Texas Tech runs the table like I think they would, they could actually be bumped up to a 2 seed. He has TCU in the Big Dance as an 8 seed. I think that's about right. It might be a little overseeded. I definitely still have TCU in the Big Dance, but I'd probably have them more as a 10 seed. He has Texas in as a 5 seed. That's about right. I don't think they could hurt their seeding at all, even if they get knocked out in the first round. And they could definitely improve their seeding. If they won the Big 12 tournament, they could be bumped up as high as a 3 seed. So this is a very important tournament for Texas. Then there's Kansas. Right now he has them as a 2 seed. I think that's about right. And if Kansas runs the table and wins the Big 12 tournament, they will be bumped up to a 1 seed. And finally, there's Baylor. He has Baylor as a 1 seed. This is the one team that I think does have something to lose. I think if Baylor gets knocked out of the Big 12 tournament, like I'm predicting, they will be bumped off that number 1 seed line. Not sure what would happen if they win that first game and then lose the next game. They could still be bumped down to a 2 seed. So Baylor definitely needs to win some games in order to keep that 1 seed in the Big Dance. And finally, what about the damage that these teams can do once they do get into the Big Dance? Well, let's start with Oklahoma. First off, Oklahoma has to win probably at least 1 game to be in the Big Dance. I would say 2 games to make sure. So if they do get into the Big Dance, I would see Oklahoma as a 10 or an 11 seed. Now, right now, they are on a 3-game winning streak. They win the Big 12 tournament, that would be a 6-game winning streak. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do have them upsetting Baylor. The problem is they only have 5 wins. 5 out of their last 16 games. That's not good at all. So the only reason I'm predicting Oklahoma to beat Baylor is because of the injury situation. I think that sets up pretty nicely for Oklahoma. I don't think Baylor will play their A game. They're going to be trying to rest some of their players. Once Oklahoma gets in, I don't see them doing much damage at all. They may get to the second round. Maybe. Next up is Iowa State. Right now, Joe Lunardi has them as an 8 seed. So they would be going into that proverbial 8-9 matchup. Here's what their last 10 games look like. Lost 4 in a row, won 4 in a row, lost 2 in a row. So they're a very streaky team. So Iowa State is capable of doing some damage. So here's the scenario I have for Iowa State. Either they get knocked out in the first round or they're going to the Sweet 16. That's it. There's no in between. They're either getting knocked out that first game or they're going to the Sweet 16. Next is TCU. He also has them as an 8 seed. The problem I have with TCU is they've only won 3 out of their last 9 games, including a loss to the worst team in the Big 12, West Virginia. But on the other hand, they did upset Kansas at home not too long ago. I just don't trust TCU, and that's why I have Texas beating TCU in the first round, and I have TCU exiting early in the Big Dance. They'll be in that 8-9 matchup, and I think the 9 seed will beat them. If they get in as a 9 seed, I think the 8 seed will beat them. Out in the first round is the bottom line. The next team is Texas. He has them as a 5 seed. Now, in their last 10 games, they've won 5 and they've lost 5. So another streaky team, but I like the talent that Texas has, and I like the coach that Texas has. Shaka Smart is a really, really good coach. I think Texas could get to the Sweet 16 and beyond, but they can't do like what they did last year and get bounced early by a bad team, Abilene Christian. Yes, we all remember. So do not take that first round for granted, and Texas could go deep in the NCAA tournament. Then there's Texas Tech, projected to be a 3 seed. They've won 8 out of their last 11 games. This is why I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12 tournament. They are extremely hot right now, and they do own a win over Kansas, so they're not scared of Kansas. If Kansas does get to the Big 12 championship, Texas Tech will meet them head on. I think Texas Tech is a possible Final Four team. Yes, you heard me right, especially since they're hot right now. Next up is Kansas, projected to be a 2 seed. If they were to win the Big 12 tournament, they would probably be a 1 seed. How far could they go? Well, it depends on if they decide to play defense or not. They have won 6 out of the last 8, but one of those losses was to TCU. So Kansas has this tendency of overlooking teams, and that's when they get beat. What happens at the Big Dance? Those bigger brands, those bigger teams tend to overlook those lower brands. That could possibly happen to Kansas. But if they do stay focused, Kansas is definitely a possible Final Four team. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they get to maybe the Sweet 16 and then the wheels come off. And finally, Baylor, projected to be a 1 seed. However, I think Baylor gets knocked down to a 2 seed because I think Oklahoma upsets Baylor. Baylor is on a 5-game winning streak, and they've won 7 out of the last 8. However, I think they're going to take a little easy, not push their players so hard in the Big 12 tournament, and then they'll push the pedal to the metal in the Big Dance. Problem is, will they be 100% at the Big Dance? If we get a 100% Baylor in the Big Dance, they are a national championship caliber team. However, if they're not able to produce at that 100% level, Baylor could be looking at at an early exit. I'm thinking Baylor may be a Sweet 16 team this year. Let me know in the comments what your prediction is going to be for the Big 12 Basketball Championship Tournament. And of course, I'll give you my opinion on your opinion. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.